So she's supposed to call you to come meet
You have no idea where DJ is.
Honestly, bro, no.
Police have been called to the Curtis Bay home of suspended Baltimore officer Eric Banks after the mother of his 15-year-old stepson, Lattice Banks, reports him missing and unreachable by phone. And what the police are about to walk into will change everything.
With no phone or anything.
You can check the ADT. It shows when he ran out the door.
I believe you, but I mean,
I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna do that.
Listen, man, it's a 15-year-old boy. Having a phone probably would have been, if he's walking out of the house, probably would have been a good idea to leave him with. And you can work out those kinks later.
But see, this is the thing.
This is getting messy, man.
Yeah, I tried to tell him. I said, sit here, wait for your mom to get here. I went upstairs. Before I can come downstairs, he's already going out the back door. So I guess she coordinated, because she's somewhere in the area, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
So she pretty much coordinated with him to come out there.
Okay. All right, hang tight.
All right.
All right.
Found out about the whole situation. His mom.
That's neither here nor there.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you.
As Eric Banks calmly tells officers he hasn't seen his stepson DJ and claims no idea of his whereabouts, suspicions rise. Little do they know about what they're about to find out.
Me and him sat at the table. He cried to me yesterday. He said he don't want this separation. Like, he knew we'd be separated before. He said he's tired of it. He's tired of feeling like he has to choose sides. He's 15. He's a teenager. He knows where he don't want to be. He's like, I don't want to be in separate homes. That. And we said that to him. I said, DJ, it's nothing really we could do. I'm not going to change the way I love you, care for you. We had a whole deep heart-to-heart conversation. Today we went to court. The judge awarded him, and I called him. I said, DJ, I guess your mom told the judge you wanted to go with her, and you're going to Arizona. He's like, what? I was like, well, start packing your bags, because you're going with Arizona with your mom. Unfortunately, I guess you're not coming back here. And that was just that. She called him. They had a conversation. I said, what did your mom say? She on the way to come pick you up. He said, yeah, but she's supposed to come here. I said, well, we're going to wait, because before she come here and there's some type of altercation, there needs to be police here. They can escort her, grab her, whatever she needs to grab, and go about this piece. That's your room. The one with the bunk bed right here? Yeah.
After Eric Banks finishes his calm explanation to the officers, denying any knowledge of DJ's whereabouts, they obtained permission to search the whole house.
This is the kids' room. DJ! This is my room right here. Yeah, he's told us he's not hiding. Alright, Dennis. I'll see this up. Is this always down? No, this is where my safe is. Yeah. So this is where my guns go. Okay. You got your little light on your side?
Yes, I do.
You got a light back up? Okay.
It might dim on you.
As the police methodically searched Banks' home, a chilling discovery in his bedroom sends shockwaves, and Eric Banks immediately tried to run away. If you are enjoying this video, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you were watching from.
What's up? 95. 95. Alright. What's up, bro? Alright, God. On the problem. Alright, yes.
The police already handcuffed Eric Banks and they were taking him to their vehicle. You won't believe what Eric Banks did next, even after being handcuffed.
Oh, in the phone, sir.
Here, let me move one thing out of your way.
Oh, great.
Alright, just see for me.
Alright.
Stay seated. Yeah, we're in custody.
Alright, yeah.
I need you to stay seated.
Okay. Alright. Okay.
After he was put in the police vehicle, he started saying he wanted to kiss his kids goodbye. I'm sure you won't believe what he did next.
Alright, go ahead. Can I just kiss my boys real quick?
No, I need you just in the car. Right? Look, listen.
Yeah, I got you, bro. Just let me kiss my boys.
Stay in the car.
Bro, just let me kiss my boys.
Stay in the car.
I'm just saying, like, just let me kiss my boys.
Stay up against the car.
Okay.
Alright, now get back in.
Hey! Bro, I'm not doing this. Stop running. What are you doing? I just want to kiss my boys, bro. Come on. Just let me kiss my boys.
Get back in the car.
Alright, come on. Come on.
After saying he wanted to kiss his kids goodbye, Eric Banks suddenly got down from the car and tried to escape again, but he was caught before he went far. Don't forget to subscribe and comment where you're watching from.
The mom is parked at the corner of Hilltop. Stay in there. You're not coming out no matter what.
Alright, bro.
Will you stop?
Okay.
Stop unbuckling.
I
What are
just
you
threw
doing?
my life away, though.
I don't care. Hey, listen. Stop.
Just choke.
Stop. What are you doing?
Just choke me. Just choke me.
Choke. Get back in the car.
Just choke me. Just choke me.
Hey, get up or go.
After he tried to escape twice, Eric Banks suddenly stood up and tried to grab the police officer's gun who handcuffed him.
Look, just choke me. Just choke.
Stop.
I can't stop.
Yes, you
It's
can.
on my wrist. And my hands going numb.
Are you gonna stop?
Yeah. My hands going numb.
All right. Turn them on
Like
the side.
numb.
But hold on.
I told you broke it. It's numb.
All right. Stay where you're at. Stay here.
I am sitting here, but I told you broke.
All right, move your legs. All right. Take a deep breath.
I am.
All right, listen. You're wiggling around a lot. It's going to make it worse.
I know.
All right?
So I want you
We're
to
done.
get up.
We're done here.
I want you to be not that. I want you to think.
We're going to take you to the hospital.
All right.
All right? Well, let's just not wrestle anymore. It's just too hot as shit today.
I know.
You sweating? I'm sweating. Can we be done?
I want to be no, bro. Like,
All right, well, let's go to the hospital and talk about it. We don't need to wrestle.
Wait, let's go back to how it all started. Curtis Bay, Maryland, a working-class neighborhood in Baltimore where people know their neighbors and kids play outside until the streetlights come on. It's the kind of place where families put down roots, where they try to build something stable. Dasan Jones was 15 years old. Everyone called him DJ. He was an honor student at Glen Burnie High School, part of a magnet program for students who wanted more, who pushed themselves harder. DJ played the violin. He was a member of the school orchestra. He'd practice in his room for hours, the sound of classical music drifting through the house. His teachers said he was focused, disciplined, the kind of student who showed up early and stayed late. He lived with his mother, Latrice Banks, and his stepfather, Eric Glenn Jones, Jr. Eric was a Baltimore police officer. He wore the uniform, carried the badge, had the authority that came with the job. But inside that house, things were not what they appeared to be. Latrice and Eric's marriage was falling apart. It had been for a while. There were arguments, silences that lasted days, a tension that filled every room. Latrice was afraid, not the kind of fear you mention casually, the kind that makes you file paperwork, the kind that makes you leave. She had filed for protective orders. She told the court she feared Eric's behavior, his need for control. She didn't specify exactly what he'd done, but the fear was real enough to put it in writing. By July 2021, they were separated, estranged, living apart but still tied together through custody, through DJ. Eric still lived in the family home in Curtis Bay. Latrice had moved out, but DJ went back and forth, a child caught between two parents who couldn't be in the same room anymore. On paper, it looked like a difficult but manageable separation. People get divorced every day. Families split and rebuild. But this wasn't just a divorce. This was something else. Something that had been building in silence. July 6th, 2021. A Tuesday. Hot and humid, the way Maryland summers are. The kind of day where the air feels heavy. That morning, Eric and Latrice both went to court. There was a hearing scheduled about the restraining order Latrice had filed. She wanted legal protection, distance, safety. The judge granted the protective order. It was official. Eric was to stay away from Latrice. The paperwork was signed. The order was real. But it hadn't been served yet. Eric hadn't been formally notified, so technically he didn't know. Or at least he could claim he didn't know. After the hearing, they went their separate ways. Eric went back to the house in Curtis Bay. Latrice went to handle her day, knowing she'd pick up DJ later. Hours passed. Afternoon turned to evening. Latrice tried calling DJ. He didn't pick up, so she tried again. He still didn't pick. She called the house phone. No one picked up. She called Eric's phone. It went to voicemail. Something felt wrong. A mother's instinct, the kind you can't ignore. She called the police, asked them to do a welfare check, to go to the house and make sure DJ was okay. It was a reasonable request, a worried mother who couldn't reach her son. Officers were dispatched to the home on Curtis Bay. When police arrived, Eric answered the door. He was calm, cooperative at first. They asked about DJ, asked if he was home.
Eric said no. He told the officers the DJ had left the house. He said the boy had walked out earlier and hadn't come back. The officers asked if they could search the house, just to make sure, just to check. Eric said yes. He gave them permission, let them inside. They walked through the house. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms. Everything looked ordinary, lived in. A little messy, but nothing alarming. Then they went upstairs. There was an attic space, a crawl space, the kind of area you don't think to check unless you're really looking. One of the officers climbed up, shined a flashlight into the darkness, and that's when they found him. DJ's body was hidden in the attic crawl space, concealed, tucked into a space where no one would casually find him. He was 15 years old, an honor student, a violinist, a boy who had a future. And now he was gone. The officers came back down. Their expressions changed. The tone shifted. This wasn't a welfare check anymore. Eric's demeanor changed too. He knew they'd found something. He knew what was coming next. When they moved to arrest him, he resisted suddenly. He became aggressive. He fought against the officers, reaching for one of their guns. He kept saying the same thing over and over. "My life is over. Choke me. My life is over." They restrained him, put him in handcuffs, took him out of the house. And DJ's body stayed where it was, in that attic, until the medical examiner could come and take him away. The medical examiner's office took DJ's body for autopsy. They needed to determine how he died, when he died, what had been done to him. After the investigation, the ruling came back: cause of death, asphyxiation. DJ had been suffocated. His airway had been blocked. Whether by hand, by object, by force, the report didn't specify publicly. But the conclusion was clear. Someone had taken his breath away. Someone had killed him, and then hidden his body in the attic of his own home. Eric Glenn Banks Jr. was charged with murder. He was also charged with attempting to disarm a police officer for what happened during the arrest, for reaching for that gun. He was a suspended Baltimore police officer now, who was no longer on duty, no longer trusted with a badge. The investigation continued. Detectives went through the house, collected evidence, talked to neighbors, talked to family members. They tried to piece together what had happened in that house on July 6th, what had led to a 15-year-old boy being hidden in an attic. But Eric wasn't talking. Latrice was devastated. She'd sent the police to check on her son, and they'd found him dead. She'd been trying to protect herself with a restraining order, and her son had paid the price. There were questions no one could answer yet. Had DJ been killed that morning? The night before? Had he suffered? Had he called for help? The house had been quiet when police arrived. No signs of a struggle in the main living areas. No blood, no broken furniture. Whatever had happened out of sight, in a space where no one could hear. The case moved slowly through the legal system, but Eric remained in custody. In October 2022, more than a year after DJ's death, Eric entered a plea. He entered what's called an Alford plea. It's a legal maneuver, a way of saying, "I'm not admitting I did this, but I acknowledge there's enough evidence to convict me." He pled to second-degree murder and to the charge of attempting to disarm a police officer. Second-degree murder means the killing wasn't premeditated. It wasn't planned out in advance. It happened in the moment for reasons that may never be fully clear. The Alford plea meant the case wouldn't go to trial. There would be no jury, no witnesses on the stand, no cross-examination. Latrice wouldn't have to sit in a courtroom and hear the details of how her son died. But she also wouldn't get answers. The legal process continued. Sentencing was scheduled, but in the meantime, DJ's case became a quiet headline, a story people read and then forgot. Another child lost to violence in a home that should have been safe. Prosecutors said DJ was a promising young man. They talked about his future, his potential, the life he should have had. They talked about the danger children face when caregivers are in crisis, when adults lose control, when homes become battlegrounds. Eric's defense raised arguments. They mentioned mental health, suggested there might have been a mental break. They even floated the idea of suicide by cop, pointing to Eric's behavior during the arrest. But none of that changed the fact that DJ was dead, that his body had been hidden, that his mother had to call the police to find him. The legal arguments didn't alter the conviction. The plea stood. It wasn't until September 2025, more than 4 years after DJ's death, that Eric Glenn Banks Jr. was finally sentenced. 4 years. That's how long Latrice had to wait for closure. The judge sentenced Eric to 42 years in prison. 42 years. He'll be an old man when he gets out. The courtroom was quiet, like a graveyard when the sentence was read. 42 years for taking 15 years, for ending a life that had barely started. Latrice was there. She didn't speak publicly after the sentencing, didn't give interviews. She'd already lost everything that mattered. Eric was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, back to prison. And DJ remains 15 forever. There are things we still don't know. We don't know exactly what happened in that house on July 6th, 2021. We know DJ died of asphyxiation. We know his body was hidden. We know Eric was the one who hid him. But the motive? Was it anger? Control? A moment of rage that went too far? We don't know. Did DJ fight back? Did he try to run? Did he have time to be afraid? We don't know. How long had he been dead before police arrived? Hours? A day? We don't know. Had there been abuse before this? Warning signs that were missed? We don't know. Latrice had been afraid enough to file for a protective order. She'd cited Eric's behavior, his need for control, but the specifics weren't made public. The defense mentioned mental health, but no diagnosis was shared publicly. No psychiatric evaluation was presented in open court. So we're left with fragments, pieces of a story that don't quite fit together. We know a boy died. We know his stepfather killed him. We know the body was hidden in an attic. But it's the silence that haunts. DJ was hidden in an attic, in his own home, while his mother called and called, trying to reach him. She knew something was wrong. She felt it, and she was right. Imagine how many times she called that day, how many times she pictured him safe. How many times did she tell herself not to worry, that she was overreacting? And then the police called her back, and her worst fear became her reality. DJ was 15. A sophomore in high school. He had years ahead of him, choices to make, places to go. He was in a magnet program. That's not easy to get into. You have to apply and prove you're serious. DJ wanted more. He played violin, and that takes discipline, takes practice, takes showing up every day even when you don't feel like it. He was in the orchestra, he performed, stood on stage in front of people and played music. His teacher said he was a good student, focused and respectful, the kind of kid who didn't cause trouble. He should have graduated high school, should have walked across that stage in a cap and gown, diploma in hand. He should have gone to college or straight into a career. He wasn't given the chance to have his first serious relationship, his first heartbreak, a wedding, kids of his own someday. He should have had the chance to be more than a 15-year-old victim, more than a name in a court document. But on July 6th, 2021, all of that was taken from him. And it was taken by someone who was supposed to protect him, someone who lived in the same house, someone in his own family. That's the part that makes this so hard to process. The betrayal. As we all know, home is supposed to be safe. Parents, even step-parents, are supposed to protect, not harm. But for DJ, home was where he died, and the person who should have kept him safe was the one who took his life. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments your thoughts in this case. I'll see you in the next one.